I started seriously reading a book when Typhoon Haiyan hit the Philippines. For a whole week, we basically lost power, and therefore I had nothing else to do but read books. And since then, that has basically opened me up to a whole new universe. But here's the thing, the problem sometimes when you learn complex things at a young age, you assume that these things are common sense. You just don't appreciate some lessons until you're a little older. So here are some lessons that I have learned when I was young that I have not fully grasped the power of until quite recently. And that's 2 decades of very powerful lessons and stuff, both the highs and the lows of failure and success. So, number one, setting goals. Again, sounds it sounds obvious, but for a lot of people, especially when they're down, if you've ever been at that point in your life where nothing makes sense, you don't move, nothing inspires you, everything is heavy, everything is just giving you stress. And your self-esteem is down. Everything you do just frustrates you. Everything you do is just not enough. And sometimes the reason why at that stage in your life, one of the most important things that you're not doing is you're not setting goals that drive you anymore because your self-esteem is so low, you don't even think about, hey, maybe I should start a business. Oh, maybe I should ask for that promotion. Or you're not thinking, maybe I should ask someone out. And it's only until you've hit rock bottom and you say, you know what, anything is better than this. You start seeing, hey, maybe I should start setting goals, maybe in the little things. Right? And it starts small. Maybe it's waking up on time, making your bed. Maybe it's not eating KFC this week. Maybe it's just walking 30 minutes a day. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's just smiling, choosing something new, being mindful that you want to go you have a goal you've set and committing to that. And which brings me to the next lesson that I learned, commitment. Commitment is crazy because I remember that there was a time where I kept being late. And then I suddenly say to my team, I'm so sorry guys, next time I promise I'm not gonna be late next time. And surely enough, I wasn't late. The only difference was that I believe that prior to I promise, I did not commit to anything. No, I just said, all right, I'm gonna go there at 7. And then I was late, but I didn't promise I would go there at 7. My whole version of what a promise is and what it was, I believe for a lot of people, you were raised by your parents and your peers asking you, do you promise? And then you think that a promise or an agreement means a promise or a signature or a ceremony. Turns out commitment is actually just doing what you say you do. It's not rocket science. If you say that you're gonna be somewhere at 7 p.m. sharp, that is already a commitment. When you say that next time I'm gonna throw the trash out, that's a commitment. When you say I'm gonna eat better next time, that's a commitment. When you say I don't wanna do this anymore, that's already a commitment. And your self-esteem is actually tied to how well you commit, how well you can fulfill your commitments. And of course, it's also a slippery slope because there's also a lot of people who think they need to overcommit just so that they could, what's the word I'm looking for? They could be of value. Their self-esteem is tied to their promise. Their word is law, and I agree with that. But there's also something called boundaries. Boundaries, unfortunately, which I thought was common sense at the time, is actually pretty not common, because I've coached, I've trained, I've talked to thousands of people in over almost 3 decades. And what I've found out is that people have a hard time defining boundaries if they have never set one before. Boundaries, or setting boundaries up, involves relationships. Knowing what your role is, and knowing clearly what is expected of you with that role. For example, you are suddenly invited to become the best man of a wedding. There's an expectation of what society is expecting what a best man would do, but there's also an expectation of what a best man would do by the groom, right? For some people, being best man means you're going to organize a bachelor party. Or it could also mean being best man means you're going to make sure that your friend does not make a decision he'd regret before the wedding. And it depends. For some of you as a student, right, there's also a definition: student and teacher, child and parent, friends. Just know what boundaries you need to set with friends. It changes based on the relationship, and it changes per people. Commitment means different things to different people. Words mean different things to different people, especially if your upbringing is different. So knowing what boundaries to set is pretty important. And it gets even more important as the stakes go higher. What do I mean by that? When you go up the ladder, when you become more aware, when you become more powerful, you realize that your influence, taking responsibility for yourself, also means you understand that you have an influence over your community or over your environment. You have a circle of influence that may or may not shape how others experience life around you. Just knowing that changes things. And of course, brings me to the last lesson I'm going to share: responsibility. I have that word my entire life. I hate responsibility because I know for a fact that it's going to be hard work. And unfortunately, life is all about growing. And there's a price and a benefit for being more responsible. People who are more responsible tend to have better finances, better relationships, better outcomes, because the value that they create is huge. And people who see that value usually gravitate towards that outcome. However, here's the thing: embracing responsibility is not the same as rescuing people. Your responsibility is not towards other people, it's towards yourself. By putting yourself first, people might think it's actually a very selfish thing to do, but putting yourself first is also one of the most selfless acts you can do. Because by putting yourself first, by putting yourself first, what I mean here is that you really work on yourself. Right? You're not working on the delusional version of you, where there's always a need to impress people, or an external need has to be met for you to feel good about yourself. That's not working on you. That's working on getting affirmation from outside or external forces, right? You are someone who is internal. You have your own peace that you need to make peace with. And by doing so, you become a healthier human being. Your self-esteem is higher. Your ability to contribute is higher. And more than that, you're also someone who is able to fully impact others just by being a healthier version of yourself. And it beats being the toxic reason why others are hurting. So that's it for me.